Welcome to the game of Praggnanandhaa versus Vidit Gujrathi at the Tata Steel Chess India Blitz. Knight to f3, knight f6, g3. Prag has been building up this home. In this opening, he goes bishop g2, knight c6, castles, and this is how I used to play as a beginner, just to not get mated. But e4 stops d5, d6, and if you take on e4, there is knight e5. But now you can take. Actually, that's a very possible move to take, but Vidit prefers bishop e7. d4, cd, cd, and bishop to g4. You can see Vidit blitzing out his moves. He seems well prepared here. He pins the knight and also threatens to win the pawn on d4 here. So bishop e3 makes a lot of sense, and d5 played. Wow, that was very quick, but it doesn't come as a surprise because just a few days ago at World Team Championship, Vidit's teammate SL Narayanan played this exact move against Daniel Yufa and drew easily. That game continued with DE, knight e5, ED, here knight takes f3, bishop f3, bishop f3, queen f3 and queen d5, and the game ended in a draw after king g2. So that is one way to play and maybe the best, but Prag goes ed5, and this is not a good move. The reason being that now Vidit can take on d5 with the knight, which he does. Look at the time on the clock. It's 2 minutes 20 seconds for Prag, 3 minutes for Vidit. Vidit is now attacking the bishop on e3, and Prag has to be very careful. For example, if he takes on e5, then knight e3 already spoils the structure after takes, queen takes, rook takes, and knight e5. Black has absolutely no problems. In fact, is slightly better because of this pin. So with all these problems, Prag has to figure out over the board in a blitz game, in a 3-minute game, as to what he must do. And this is not an easy matter. You can see Vidit so calmly sitting there. He has this perfect pose with his left hand on his chin, right hand supporting his left elbow, goes queen b3. Now, this is an interesting move by Prag. What he's doing is he's x-raying on the d5 knight with his queen and also the bishop on g2, also pressuring the b7 pawn. There are a few options that Vidit has. The most obvious move is to simply take the bishop here. But there are other options. Let's say if I take on f3, then after bishop f3, the knight on d5 is under pressure. So there's no time to take on d4 because of bishop takes d5. The other possibility is to take on d4 with the knight, but then knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, de, bishop f7, king f8, and now fe3 opens up the rook as well, and black is simply busted. So you can't do that. If you can't take there, can you take ed4 here? Not really, because after knight takes, bishop takes, white is clearly better. Also, if you can't take on d4 with anything, and if you can't bring your bishop, maybe you can bring your bishop back, but then b7 is hanging, e5 is hanging. If you castle here, there's knight e5. So Vidit's options are very few. He must take on e3, but he's been thinking for close to 1 minute 20 seconds. That is a lot of time. Vidit is, Vidit could have taken on e3 within 2 seconds, but he wanted to find that perfect move. But in doing so, he has lost a lot of time. His position still remains good, but the psychological advantage has shifted in Prag's favor here, I would say. And Vidit takes on e3, which is the correct move. fe3 played. Now there's pressure on f7. Notice with the rook opening up and the knight coming in. Although the position is very favorable for Vidit, he suddenly started to doubt his position. He castles here, which is the best move. And now Prag, in order to show something for the plan that he has followed, he must take the pawn on b7, which he does. He jumps in, rook c8, fantastic move again, the best move in the position. Now, what Vidit wants to do is he wants to take on d4, pawn takes, and then knight takes. Then the queen can come in with a check, and then his bishops are very powerful. So, with all of that in mind, Prag has to decide what to do. It's not at all an easy position for him. He has 1 minute 9 seconds. Vidit has 1 minute 11 seconds. One way is to simplify with knight e5, winning the second pawn. But after knight e5, de5, the pawns are weak and also the bishop can pop out on c5, attack the e3 pawn. This bishop ensures that the rook cannot come to the d1 square, and the queen on b7 is a little bit confused. What is she doing on b7? Pragg is trying to figure out what is the way in which he can continue. Takes on e5 with the knight. Knight takes with it, quickly plays it, once again building a 30-second lead on the clock. Now, there are a few moves that can be tried. One is rook b8. The other one is bishop c5. Vidit was about to make a move, but he paused. He's like, let me think very clearly here what to do. Rook b8 would be very nice, because if you play queen e4, hitting the bishop, I have first rook b4, defending my bishop there. And if you play queen c2, I can go queen b8 with a double attack on e5. Bishop c5 played, and knight to c3. Pragg was so quick to make this move. He's like, take the e3 pawn with it. I have many pawns. I need to finish my development. And that's the reason why he goes for this move. Pretty decent move. And now rook b8 with the idea of taking here would be good. With it takes on e3, which is also fine. King h1. And now it's very important to play something bishop b6, you know, save the pawn. But with it blunders. With it blunders with rook b8. Why is this a blunder, guys? Look. Queen e4 hits the bishop here and here. That's the point. And look at Pragg. He's calculating. He's making sure that that is working or not. And he zooms into the board. He plays queen e4, but with it had his response prepared. He defends this bishop as well. So with it seems to be doing fine here, because now both the bishops are defended. And it seems like the position is equal, because white is a pawn up, but black has bishop, and no, rook f4. What a move. He not only defends the queen, attacks this bishop, attacks the queen as well. You can't take the rook because the queen would be hanging. What an insane tactic by Praggnanandhaa. Unbelievable chess. With it down to 14 seconds, plays queen d2, but he's just losing a piece. Wow, rook f4. That came out of nowhere. Praggnanandhaa spotted that insane tactic. Rook takes g4 taken. Vidit is now down a piece. Rook, queen b2, if you take on c3, e3 is hanging. Knight d5, and notice the mating ideas. Knight f6 and queen h7, knight e7 and queen h7 also hanging. I'm unable to make the arrows properly because I'm just so excited here. Rook f1 played, putting pressure on f7. Queen takes a2. Vidit is now a complete piece down. Knight e7. The knight enters the fray. Rook b8 played, but this is all over now. Knight f5. The g7 pawn is under pressure. g6. Knight to d6. And now queen d4. Pragg plays. Yes, he plays it. His idea is e6 to attack here. King g8. The bishop swoops in, attacking the queen and f7 point. Queen takes c2. And now knight takes f7. Also falls. Wow, what a position this is. What a game this has been. Queen f2 offering to trade, and if you trade, you cannot take on f7 because the rooks will be pinned here. Rook takes f2, king g7, but now Pragg is just winning this totally. He's full piece up if you count the number of pawns. Both sides have 3 pawns, so the rest is quite simple. But with 6 seconds left, there is definitely something to play for with it. Also, the a pawn is a passer, so he should not be resigning so soon. Rook to c7, king f6, and now the rook goes behind the passer. a3 played, and he goes knight h6. The idea is knight g4 to win a piece. Bishop c5, rook a5. Pragg down to 6 seconds. Vidit has 5 seconds. Knight g4. And he wants to go king g5, but then bishop f3 would almost lead to a mate. So he goes king e7, rook a7 check, bishop c7, takes king d5, the king d6, but he cannot win a piece. e7 threatening rook d8, and Vidit Gujrathi resigns the game. What an unbelievable encounter that was, as they both discuss. Great sportsmanship shown by Vidit, trying to analyze there. He is saying that, you know, I was very happy with my opening position, but somehow didn't do so well with this move, rook b8. But Pragg finding rook f4. What a move that was. Just unbelievable. I wanted to give a small breakdown of this opening because I think it can be useful in your games. Knight f3, knight f6, g3, c5, bg2, knight c6, castles, e5. And now, if let's say white goes d3, black can play d5 and get the center. It's a pure reversed King's Indian. But with e4, Pragg is telling Vidit that you can't play d5 so easily. And if you take knight e4, then after knight e5, it's a very nice tactical shot. You take on e5, I take on e4, and white is better. So that's the reason why Vidit went d6 and Pragg went c3. But now actually taking on e4 perhaps is the best move here for black. Not so easy to know without prep. Knight e5, de, and now bishop e4 and bishop to e6. It's roundabout even, maybe slightly small edge for black as well, because you can play queen d7, bishop e7 or d6 and castle here, or even long castle if possible. So the best move after knight e4 is to play d4, and there is this very nice game of Anish Giri versus Peter Lecco, which went f5, de, knight d2, takes with the knight, bishop e6, rook e1, and queen d7, queen a4, and now it was important to perhaps long castle here, but he went bishop d5, and that meant bishop d5, queen d5, knight to c4, long castle, and bishop g5 played. Rook d7, rook came into d1, and this was already lost because Anish won back his pawn and the king is very weak because of queen d8 mate. So a very important move here, knight e4, should be thought of. Vidit went bishop e7, Pragg went d4, takes, bishop g4, bishop e3, but he was very well prepared with d5. Even de5 does not seem to give enough of an edge here. This is a bad move, by the way. Knight takes f3 is the best move. Take, queen takes, queen d5, and maybe queen e2, and white can try for something here. Because if black castles, which is the most natural move, knight c3, white has that small bit going for him because the e7 bishop is hanging. Apart from this, if you were to take de, knight e, here knight takes d5, then bishop d4, and white is already clearly better. But once Pragg played e d5, knight d5, Vidit had already equalized here, and this is a very favorable position for him.